A speech, and one thing is fascinating, the extremes we're hearing as people analyze this thing. You've got some people comparing it to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. You know, others like me say, yes, he is a great speaker, and it was a very good speech. But this is just another in a long line of very good speeches. What I wanted from Barack Obama was, let me in a little further on your relationship with the Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Let me in. Did you have the courage to confront him? If not, why not? As you heard these hateful things from the pulpit. And again, you listened to him for 20 years. But again, analysis aside, the voters, you're going to have the final say on this one. And we want to gauge what people are saying. One way to do that, tap into the talk radio audience. And joining me now, liberal radio talk show host Stephanie Miller. She hosts the Stephanie Miller Show. And on the conservative side, radio talk show host Ben Ferguson. All right, Stephanie, I'm sure that most of your listeners, you correct me if I'm wrong, yourself included, loved the speech, thought he hit the home run. Did you get anybody calling you saying, you know what, he didn't do enough?
Actually, I had a lot of grown men crying, and I'm usually one that does not believe grown men should cry unless something heavy has fallen on them. But yeah, a lot of grown men weeping. And there was one guy today that was really confusing because he asked me if I'm a black woman, and that's why I like Obama, and I said yes. That's exactly it. So that was the most confusing call.
Yeah, I'm sure. But no one that called and said, not enough. It was unanimous that everyone loves the speech for your listeners?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I think definitely, but I think, you know, so many people have just pointed out the hypocrisy here that, you know, Pastor Hagee and Rod Parsley, who are endorsing John McCain.
Wait a minute, Rod, no, before we go there, Parsley and Hagee are not the spiritual mentor, and John McCain did not sit under those guys for 20 years.
John McCain has called Rod Parsley his spiritual guide. Absolutely. He has the Hagee thing up on his website.
Well, I don't think he went to those churches for 20 years. I think that's a hollow argument.
He has renunciated the comments that were made that were clearly inappropriate. He has renounced them.
But I still say it's different when you're Barack Obama and he has blessed your home, baptized your kids, and married you, and you've been under him for 20 years is different than a passing relationship that John McCain has with Hagee or Parsley.
I think he made the point beautifully that do any of us agree with anybody we love, everything they say? Anybody? I'm from a Republican family, for God's sakes. Can you imagine the things they've said?
Right.
I mean.
I'm with you on that. Ben, let's get you in on this one. And I want to, again, aside from the speech, I want to hear what your listeners are saying. Ben, did you, and I'm sure most of your listeners probably agree with me, said it was very good, but he didn't do enough.
No, I mean, he's a great speaker, but the bottom line is he did not distance himself from this man. He said, I can no less disown this man than I can my white grandmother. And I think people were unimpressed with that line because, you know, this man, look at what his pastor did say from the pulpit. He said that the American government created the AIDS virus. He said that the American government gave African Americans drugs so they could go to jail. This man has said, and that's just two of many things that he said, like referring to the U.S. of A. as the KKK of A. So was Barack Obama supposed to disown this man? I would have hoped so. This man may have gotten the biggest free pass that we've ever seen in politics when it comes to scandal because people don't know how to deal with the race issue. But this man has a man that's a mentor, unlike the cheap shot that she said about John McCain. You've never found a pastor connected to John McCain, for that matter, that's ever said that the American government made the AIDS virus to kill people. I mean, the things that's come out of this man's mouth after he married this man, after he's been a mentor, and after he baptized his children, to say you never heard it when people have found speeches over 20 years that are insane. Even Oprah left the church in 1984. So this is a massive free pass, and many people realize it.
Oh, Ben, please.
Oprah even got it.
It's much better to call the Catholic Church a giant whore. That's much more appropriate.
Who said that?
It's much more appropriate to say Islam needs to be destroyed.
Who said
John
that?
McCain's pastors.
John McCain's pastor said that.
Pastor
He's not his pastor.
Oh, please. He went after their endorsement. He went after their endorsement and said he's proud to have it. Please.
There's a big difference between having a man that's been sitting there mentoring your life.
You're in talk radio. They could take clips of you and I. They could string together 3 separate things we've said, and we would obviously
let me jump in. Let me jump in, you two. First off, I do have to agree with Ben on this one, Stephanie, that listening to John Hagee or Rod Parsley, that's not being at their church. That's a different story sitting in the pews. But let's argue that one on a different day. Let's argue that one on a different day. John McCain's not going to their church.
But they've been in bed with people like Pat Robertson.
Well, that's fine, but that's not going to their church. That's completely different. Rod Parsley's not going to John McCain's house and blessing his home and baptizing his kids. It's a much closer relationship.
How much more strongly could he denounce those statements that you're talking about right now?
That's fine to denounce the statements. It's a difference than being a spiritual advisor and having a tight 20-year relationship. But let's get away from that one. And you make a good point. Maybe we'll argue that one another day. I want to argue this, or at least pose this to you, Stephanie. Am I wrong to question Barack Obama when, again, you are a transcendent figure, and I like that about you, that I believe you, that you're the guy that can bring unity, you can bring together Republican and Democrat, white and black, but yet you're going to listen to a pastor for 20 years who preaches the polar opposite of your message. Don't you have the courage to confront him and at some point walk out of that church? Stephanie?
Mike, first of all, here's a wacky thing. What he talked about mostly for 20 years is Jesus, which I know is really radical. He talked about a lot of things over. You know, Mike Huckabee defended him today, Obama and the pastor. He said when you're a pastor,
Mike Huckabee's not mainstream.
Sometimes you get carried away. He absolutely defended, you know, the pastor and Obama on this.
Stephanie,
you can't possibly be held responsible
you know what's
for
funny about
everything.
this whole issue? It's funny that I even came out and said that Trent Lott should step down after he made a dumb comment at a 90-year-old birthday party that went back to race. But you guys have a guy up here that says that that 9/11 happened because it's our fault. That has a church.
Ben,
hold on, wait.
Say it was our fault. You know what?
This man called the U.S. of A. the KKK of A. That's not an oops. That's a big deal.
He did not say we're responsible for 9/11. It was a very poor choice of words.
I did.
Have you ever heard Pat Buchanan say over and over, the terrorists don't hate us for our freedoms, they hate us for our policies? 9/11 happened because of our policies.
Stephanie, Ben, ding, ding, we have to go. Again.
Oh, darn it. Just when we're having fun.
We're just getting loose there. All right. I'm sure we'll talk to both of you very soon. Thanks again. And please, want to open this one up to you, the viewer. Please weigh in on this one. You already have. I'm sure you'll continue to do so. CNN.com/Prime News. Did Barack Obama do enough? We'll continue to talk about that one.